Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we try to make sense of corporate filings so you don't have to. Today we are diving into a Chewy proxy statement. Now proxy statements usually aren't the most exciting documents. Think of them as the annual meeting invites from companies to their shareholders. But trust me, this one has a few interesting bits that may surprise you. Before we start, if you appreciate getting straight insights from corporate documents, make sure you're subscribed. We also have a Discord community linked in the description below if you want to discuss with others. First off, this is for their annual meeting coming up in July of 2025. This document is basically a heads up to all the stockholders, letting them know what's on the agenda and how to vote, even if they can't make it to the meeting. Think of it as a corporate election guide. They lay out some basic information about attending the meeting and being able to ask questions, and also give instructions on how to receive a copy of the proxy materials. Here's what the meeting is all about. Stockholders will be voting on electing directors, ratifying the appointment of their accounting firm, which is Deloitte and Touche, and also on an advisory vote on executive compensation. The advisory vote on executive compensation is non-binding, but still provides an opportunity to give feedback on how well the board has compensated the executives. It is worth pointing out that because a single affiliate owns more than 50% of the company shares, it has an outsized impact on what gets approved, and because the single affiliate owns more than 50% of the company shares, it has an outsized impact on what gets approved. This is important. As of May 12, 2025, BC Partners owns more than half of the company's stock. This means they have enough votes to approve pretty much anything they want. It's like holding all the cards in a poker game. Let's talk about who owns Chewy. This section breaks down who holds the most shares and therefore has the most influence. It's a snapshot of power within the company. Looking at some individuals, Raymond Vedder, a director, has 60,000 shares. Sumit Singh, the CEO, owns 974 shares. It is important to note here that all those numbers represent a very small percentage of the total stock, as more than 90% of it is owned by a single entity. That entity is, as we mentioned before, BC Partners. Through a string of subsidiaries, they control a whopping 219 tons in 190% of the 60% of Class B common stock. This translates to roughly 91.8% of the total voting power. Now, let's shift gears and look at the money stuff, specifically what they are paying their accountants. Deloitte & Touche, the independent registered public accounting firm. Basically, they make sure Chewy's books are in order. In fiscal year 2024, Chewy paid Deloitte roughly $3 or roughly $3.11 million for audit services. That's up from $2.5 million the previous year. Time to talk about the big bucks. This section explains how Chewy compensates its top executives, also known as the named executive officers. This can be a sensitive area, as it often raises questions about fairness and whether executives are being rewarded appropriately. The most important points in this discussion are that compensation is heavily weighted towards equity awards that incentivize long-term stock price appreciation, and that the short-term incentive program focuses on metrics to grow sales and improve profitability. The proxy mentions some highlights such as $11.86 billion in net sales and adjusted EBITDA of $570.5 million. So how much are these executives getting paid? Let's jump to the summary compensation table to find out. All right, let's get to the numbers. Sumit Singh, the CEO, had a total compensation package worth over $29 in fiscal year 2024. The bulk of that comes from stock awards valued at nearly $24 million. In comparison, his salary was around $1.2 million. In comparison, his salary was around $1.2 million. This fits the description of having executives incentivize long-term stock price appreciation. David Reeder, the Chief Financial Officer, comes in second with a total compensation of nearly $28 million, with most of that also being stock awards. They do have some standard benefits like a 401k and the normal health insurance. One perquisite the CEO got, not given to others, was for personal security related services and automobiles worth more than $1.4 million. Okay, so now here's the catch. While stockholders get to vote on whether they approve of how the executives are being paid, this vote is advisory. In the end, Chewy's board can decide to ignore it if they want. That's why that massive ownership share that BC Partners has is so impactful. The most important measures used by Chewy to link executive compensation to company performance were net income or loss, net sales, adjusted EBITDA margin, and free cash flow. The proxy also goes into some information about what happens in case of termination or a change in control where the executives can get additional benefits. This might give someone heartburn because if the company does bad, these executives may get paid even more. Now, what's interesting here is that the board recommends that stockholders vote on an advisory basis, the compensation of our named executive officers. As it says here, though, this advisory vote is not intended to address any specific item of compensation, but rather the overall compensation of the named executive officers and our executive compensation philosophy and practices. Finally, there's some legal language about what's included in the filing and what's not. It's important, but not exactly the most riveting read. One thing worth noting is that the document includes website addresses, which are inactive textual references only. The information on these websites does not form part of this document. So what's my take on all of this? Chewy, like many public companies, has a compensation structure that heavily rewards its top executives, especially if the company does well in the long term. This proxy statement is a chance for stockholders other than BC Partners to voice their opinion on this approach. Chewy's overall direction appears sound. They're growing their top line, but how much of that growth is actually trickling down to the bottom line and benefiting all stockholders? That's always the question. I think it is definitely worth it to review the non-GAAP financial metrics that they use to justify executive compensation decisions. Always take it with a grain of salt. What is considered to be a write-off or one-time cost can be completely different in reality. In general, I don't have any objections about this compensation philosophy or amounts, as long as a minority shareholder is also performing better or at least at par with any of the increases to executive compensation. In general, I think the CEO of these kinds of companies which have complex operation merit the amount of compensation they are receiving. And alright, that's our breakdown of Chewy's proxy statement. Let me know what you guys think. If this analysis was valuable, hitting that like button really helps, and subscribe for more deep dives. And don't forget to check out the Discord in the description. Thanks for watching. See you next time.